My backstory, A Brief History of My Life, Part 4, AJ Ferreira. On January 10, 2014, at the age of 16 years old, I took LSD for the first time with my friend Matt at the time. He and I had a very positive and profoundly spiritual experience. We spent the duration of the trip listening to music, meditating, and having conversations about the universe and science and religion. We also both did a meditation where he and I looked into each other's eyes, and it was at that time that the trip seemed to have temporarily vanished. We looked around the room, and for about an hour it was as if he and I were sober, like we had not taken LSD at all. Matt and I both realized that, to a certain degree, the LSD trip could be controlled by focused thoughts and intentions, and active awareness of both emotions and our surroundings. It was extremely profound. About a month later, after my first experience with LSD, I had smoked weed that had been laced with K2 and PCP. I ended up in a psychotic episode that landed me in a 2.5-week stay in Natchaug Psychiatric Hospital under Hartford Healthcare. Afterwards, I was misdiagnosed as bipolar disorder and was given medications by Dr. Ronald Davidoff of CHR, the very same doctor that had misdiagnosed my older brother when I was a child. Diagnosing an adolescent with bipolar disorder when the patient, as young as I was, clearly suffered from a drug-induced psychosis is malpractice. I was forced by my parents to take lithium and risperidone, and continued taking them for a while until I stopped taking them upon graduating high school. The next time I took LSD was in December of 2015. I took a few doses over the span of a couple weeks that December. The experiences that I had were both incredibly spiritual and emotional and expansive. However, I fell back into a psychotic state after failing to maintain a proper sleep pattern, seeing how I would take the doses of LSD at night and often would go 2 to 3 days without sleep. This episode led me into another 2.5-week stay at the Institute of Living in Hartford. I was put back on lithium and risperidone and was told that I had to stay on the medications. I felt that I did not need the medications and that my diagnosis was incorrect because, again, I had experienced a drug-induced psychosis and was not experiencing any sort of bipolar episode. Of course, I was ignored by the doctors and nurses and by my parents, and they all kept forcing the medications on me. In an act of rebellion, I stopped taking the medications a few months later, and through the majority of 2016, I continued to use LSD. During this time period, I was able to take LSD in moderation, and I was fully capable of withholding a full-time job, sometimes even working 80-hour work weeks. I was a fully functioning member of society, and I felt as though I was beginning to heal and move through some of the traumas that I held from childhood while using LSD with clear intentions, and practicing yoga and meditation, and by making art and poetry and music. I saw so much beauty in the experiences, and I felt more connected to a sense of joy and aliveness and peacefulness in my day-to-day life. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away that summer in 2016, and I used LSD as a tool to help me grieve, and, even though it is not a healthy thing to use substances to cope with grief, I was able to come to a place of peace with my grandfather's passing. I was able to view it as if he were returning home, to heaven, and that he could finally be at rest with my grandmother. The very last time that I took LSD was on Halloween in 2016, and the person who had given the tab of LSD to me had lied to me about the dose. Instead of a regular tab of LSD with 1 dose on it, the tab had been soaked with LSD, so I have no idea how many doses were on it. The tab was also laced with another drug as well, however, I cannot recall what. The trip lasted for about 3 weeks, 2 of which I spent in the Institute of Living in Hartford. I started coming up on Halloween when I took the tab, proceeded to become increasingly intoxicated, with intensifying effects for about 8 days. Then I hit a plateau for about 2 days, and then came back down over the next few days. There was very little that the hospital staff could do except help me ride out the experience with the help of medications and therapy. This experience made me realize the intense danger and uncertainty about what could be in or on drugs from the streets, and I never took LSD again after that. Continue with Part 5 for the rest of the story. AJ Ferreira.